Commander Daniel Pierce stared at the screen in disbelief. The message had arrived without warning, cutting through every communication channel at once. Around him, the command center of Sentinel-7 had gone silent. Everyone watched the alien figure on the main display. Ambassador of the Coalition stood before them. His skin was pale blue, his eyes were dark and cold. He wore ceremonial armor that gleamed under harsh lights. When he spoke, his voice carried no emotion. Humanity has 72 hours to comply with Coalition demands. You will surrender all military vessels. You will dismantle your defensive stations. You will withdraw from the outer reaches and accept protectorate status under Coalition authority. This is your final warning. Non-compliance will result in military action. We expect your answer within the deadline. The transmission ended. Daniel sat back in his chair and rubbed his face. Lieutenant Collins turned from her station. "Sir, they can't be serious." "They're serious," Daniel said quietly. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command." Down on Earth, President Lisa Morales stood in the Situation Room surrounded by her advisors. She had watched the same message. The room erupted in arguments the moment the transmission ended. "We have no choice," said Secretary Harrison. "Their fleet is 3 times the size of ours. This is survival." General Bradford slammed his hand on the table. "This is surrender. Once we give up our weapons, we lose everything. The Coalition doesn't protect species, they absorb them. Within 10 years, there won't be a human government. There won't be human colonies. We'll be subjects, not citizens." "Better subjects than extinct," another advisor said. Lisa raised her hand. The room fell quiet. She had not spoken since the message arrived. Everyone waited. "Show me our assets," she said. General Bradford pulled up the displays: 47 warships, 12 defense stations, colony militias scattered across 6 worlds. Against that, the Coalition could bring 300 vessels or more. The numbers were clear. "What about the colonies?" Lisa asked. "New Haven, Frontier Base, the mining settlements. They're all in the outer reaches. The Coalition wants us gone from there completely." Lisa thought about the 50,000 people living on those worlds. Families, children, people who left Earth to build new lives. The Coalition wanted humanity to abandon them. "How long until their fleet arrives?" she asked. "If they're coming from their nearest base, 4 days, maybe 5. They want our answer before they get here." Lisa walked to the window. Earth spread out below, blue and green and beautiful. Humanity had fought for thousands of years to reach the stars. They had survived wars, plagues, disasters. They had climbed out of their gravity well through determination and blood. And now some alien empire wanted them to give it all up. "I need to address the planet," she said. "And the colonies, everyone needs to hear this." On Sentinel-7, Collins checked her systems for the 3rd time. The orders had come through. All stations were to prepare for possible combat. She didn't like the word possible. There was nothing possible about it. Her console beeped, a personal message. She opened it and saw her brother's face. Peter Collins was stationed on New Haven, one of the colonies the Coalition wanted humanity to abandon. "Hey sis, I guess you saw the news. Things are pretty tense out here. The governor is talking about evacuation, but where would we go? Earth doesn't have room for all of us, and these are our homes. We built this place. Tell me we're not just going to leave." Closed the message. She wanted to tell Peter everything would be fine, but she had seen the intelligence reports. The Coalition had done this before. They picked a weaker species, made demands, demonstrated force, and took what they wanted. It worked every time. Except humanity had never been good at following orders from bullies. President Lisa Morales appeared on screens across Earth and every human colony. She looked tired, but her voice was steady. "By now you have all seen the Coalition message. They have given us 72 hours to surrender our military, dismantle our defenses, and abandon our colonies. They expect us to accept their terms out of fear. They believe we will choose survival over freedom." She paused and looked directly at the camera. "I have consulted with military leaders, with scientists, with the colonial governors. I have looked at the numbers. The Coalition fleet is larger than ours. They have better weapons. In a direct fight, we would probably lose. These are the facts." Another pause. Across human space, millions held their breath. But there are other facts they should consider. Humanity has never surrendered to impossible odds. We have faced extinction before and survived. We are the species that turned into a garden. We crossed space in ships that barely worked because we refused to stay confined. Every generation of humans has fought for the next generation's freedom. That is who we are. Lisa's voice grew stronger. So here is my answer to the coalition. We refuse. We will not surrender our ships. We will not dismantle our defenses. We will not abandon our people. If the coalition wants what we have built, they will have to take it from us, and we will make them pay for every inch. The broadcast ended. For a moment there was silence across human civilization. Then the cheers began. On Earth, in the colonies, on ships and stations, humans roared their approval. On Sentinel-7, Daniel Pierce stood and faced his crew. You heard the President. We have 3 days to prepare. I want every weapon checked, every system ready. When they come, we give them a welcome they won't forget. Collins sent a message back to her brother. We're not leaving. Get ready to fight. General Bradford coordinated with every military unit. Ships moved into position. Defense stations armed their weapons. Colony militias dug in. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. Deep in a research facility, Dr. Gregory looked at his experimental weapons. They weren't ready. Nothing was ready. But ready or not, humanity was going to war. The 72-hour countdown began. Across human space, people prepared. They sent messages to loved ones. They checked their equipment. They tried not to think about the massive fleet coming toward them. The coalition had given humanity one last warning. They expected fear. They expected surrender. They expected humans to break like every other species had broken before them. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In the outer darkness, the coalition fleet prepared to jump to human space. Fleet Commander Hex reviewed the battle plans. It would be quick. A few demonstrations of power. The humans would see reason. They always did. The coalition fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. 300 vessels filled the darkness, their hulls gleaming with weapons. At the center of the formation, the flagship Infinite Dominion dwarfed every other ship. Fleet Commander Hex stood on his bridge and watched the human system spread before him. Scan for their fleet, he ordered. His sensor officer worked quickly. Scattered formations, Commander. They're not concentrated for defense. Ships are spread across the asteroid belt and near the outer planets. Hex nodded. Fear, they don't know where to position themselves. Send the Vanguard forward, 30 ships, target that defense station. He pointed to Sentinel-7 on the display. Destroy it, make it visible from Earth. The Vanguard fleet broke away and moved toward their target. Hex settled into his command chair. This would be over quickly. On Sentinel-7, Commander Daniel Pierce watched the approaching ships. Around him, his crew worked in silence. Everyone knew what was coming. 30 contacts, Collins reported from Tactical. They're not even trying to hide, coming straight at us. Let them come, Daniel said quietly. Are our friends in position? Yes, sir, waiting for the signal. Daniel opened the command channel. All units, this is Sentinel-7. Hold your positions, wait for my mark. The Coalition Vanguard closed in. Their commander, aboard the cruiser Eternal Wrath, sent a message to Sentinel-7. Human station, you have one chance to surrender. Power down your weapons and abandon your post. You have 2 minutes. Daniel didn't respond. Instead, he watched the tactical display. The coalition ships moved into the exact position he wanted. They flew between 2 large asteroid clusters, confident in their shields and weapons. They had no idea what waited for them. Now, Daniel said calmly. From behind the asteroids, human ships appeared. 20 vessels that had been hiding in the magnetic shadows burst from cover. They came from multiple angles, moving fast. The coalition vanguard suddenly found themselves surrounded. Fingers flew across her controls, firing. Sentinel-7's main weapons opened up. But these weren't the energy weapons the coalition expected. These were rail guns, kinetic weapons developed from human mining technology. Solid projectiles moving at impossible speeds. The first volley hit the Eternal Wrath shields. The shields held for a moment, then collapsed. They were designed to disperse energy, not stop solid mass. The second volley tore through the cruiser's hull. All around the battlefield, the same thing happened. Human ships fired their kinetic weapons at close range. Coalition shields flickered and failed. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. On the Infinite Dominion, Hex stood up from his chair in shock. What is happening? The Vanguard is under heavy attack. They're losing ships. how their technology is inferior. But the reports kept coming. The humans weren't fighting the way they were supposed to. They attacked from multiple angles. They used the asteroids for cover. Their weapons bypassed shields. Captain Stephen, commanding the destroyer Earth's Fury, pressed his advantage. His ship dove at a coalition frigate, firing continuously. The enemy vessel tried to turn, but it was too slow. Railgun rounds punched through its engines. The frigate went dead in space. Target destroyed, Stephen's weapons officer reported. Moving to next contact. Spotted something on her tactical display. The coalition formation had a weakness. Their command ship was positioned behind 3 cruisers, protected but unable to move quickly. She opened a channel to Daniel. "Sir, I see an opportunity. If we can hit their command ship, we can break their coordination." Daniel looked at the same display. It was risky. They would have to send ships deep into the enemy formation, but the payoff could be huge. "Do it, send the fighter wing." 3 human fighters broke from the main force. They were small, fast, and piloted by veterans. Lieutenant Chris Palmer led the group. He had been flying combat missions since the Colony Wars. This was bigger, but the principles were the same. "Stay tight," he told his wingman. "We go in fast, hit hard, get out." The fighters accelerated toward the Eternal Wrath. Coalition point defense tried to track them, but the fighters jinked and rolled. They flew through the debris of destroyed ships, using it as cover. Chris locked onto the Eternal Wrath's bridge, firing. All 3 fighters released their missiles at once. The Coalition command ship tried to evade, but it was too large and too slow. The missiles struck home. The bridge exploded in a flash of light. "Command ship hit," shouted. "Their vanguard is losing coordination." She was right. Without their commander, the coalition ships began fighting independently. Some tried to retreat, others pressed forward. The formation fell apart. Daniel seized the moment. "All ships, maximum attack, don't let them regroup." The human fleet surged forward. They had fewer ships, but now they had momentum. The coalition vanguard tried to reform, but it was too late. More ships went dark. More explosions lit the space. On the Infinite Dominion, Hex watched his vanguard crumble. 8 ships destroyed. 5 more damaged. The humans had barely lost 2 vessels. It was impossible. It was humiliating. "Order the vanguard to retreat," he said through clenched teeth. "Pull back to the main fleet." The surviving coalition ships turned and ran. The humans didn't pursue. They held their positions, guarding Sentinel-7. Daniel allowed himself to breathe. They had won the first engagement. Barely, but they had won. "Damage report," he ordered. Sentinel-7 took heavy hits, said. "Hull breaches on decks 4 and 6. Shield generators are offline, but we're operational." "And our fleet?" 2 destroyers lost, 3 ships heavily damaged. "But sir, we took out 8 of theirs. We won." Daniel nodded slowly. "We won the first round. The real fight hasn't started yet." He was right to be cautious. On the Infinite Dominion, Hex called an emergency meeting with his senior officers. They all looked shaken. Nothing like this had happened before. "How did they destroy our shields?" Hex demanded. His chief engineer studied the battle data. "They used kinetic weapons, solid projectiles. Our shields are designed to disperse energy. Mass is different. The kinetic force overwhelms the field generators." "Why didn't our intelligence know about this?" "They're a species, Commander. They developed technology for surviving a harsh planet, mining asteroids, dealing with meteor impacts. They adapted those tools for war." Hex stared at the battle map. The humans were still there, still defiant. He had expected them to break after losing a few ships. Instead, they had broken his vanguard. "What about their tactics?" he asked. "Ambush warfare, hit and run. They're using the terrain. Our doctrine assumes open space combat against opponents who fight honorably." "There is no honor in war," Hex said coldly. "Only victory. Send a message to the High Council. We need reinforcements, and we need new tactics." Back on Earth, President Lisa Morales addressed the planet again. News of the victory had spread quickly. People celebrated in the streets, but Lisa knew better than to get overconfident. "Today we proved that humanity can fight back," she said. "We bloodied the coalition and protected our position, but this is only the beginning. They will come again with more ships, more weapons. We must be ready." General Bradford coordinated the defense. Ships moved to new positions. Sentinel-7 began emergency repairs. Damaged vessels pulled back to Earth for maintenance. On New Haven colony, Peter Collins watched the battle reports with his fellow colonists. They had cheered when the news came through. Humanity had won. They weren't alone. "We showed them," someone said. "We showed them we can fight," Peter corrected. "Now we have to show them we can win." Collins worked through the night repairing her station systems. Her hands were steady, but her mind kept replaying the battle. They had won through surprise and tactics. Next time the coalition would be ready. Next time would be harder. Dr. Gregory studied the battle data from his research station. The kinetic weapons had worked better than expected. But the coalition would adapt. He needed to stay ahead of them. He needed new weapons, new defenses, new ideas. Commander Daniel Pierce stood alone in the observation deck. Outside, repair crews worked on Sentinel-7's damaged sections. In the distance, human ships patrolled the area where they had fought. They had won the first battle, but war was made of many battles. The coalition had hundreds of ships. They would come again. And when they did, humanity needed to be ready. The warning had been given. Humanity had answered with fire and blood. The coalition thought they were fighting an inferior species. They were learning the truth. Humanity didn't fight fair. Humanity fought to win. 3 weeks had passed since the first battle. The coalition fleet had grown to over 400 ships. They filled the outer solar system like a swarm of metal insects. Fleet Commander Hex had learned from his mistakes. He would not underestimate humanity again. But humanity had learned too. They couldn't win direct battles, so they stopped fighting directly. Captain Drake guided her ship, Ghost Runner, through the darkness beyond Neptune's orbit. The stealth frigate was designed for exactly this kind of work. Small, quiet, invisible to most sensors. "Contact ahead," her navigator said. "Coalition supply convoy, 3 freighters, 2 escorts." Studied the display. The coalition needed supplies to maintain their fleet. Food, fuel, ammunition, everything had to be shipped from their bases, and that meant vulnerable convoys. "All hands battle stations," she ordered. "Silent approach, wait for my signal." Ghost Runner crept closer. The coalition escorts scanned space, but they were looking for large ships. They weren't ready for something small and deadly. "Signal," said calmly. Ghost Runner fired. Missiles streaked across space and slammed into the first escort. Before the coalition could react, the stealth ship was already moving to a new position. The second escort tried to return fire, but Ghost Runner had vanished into the sensor shadows of a nearby comet. "Second wave," ordered. More missiles. The second escort exploded. The supply freighters tried to run, but they were slow and undefended. Ghost Runner picked them off one by one. "All targets destroyed," the weapons officer reported. "Get us out of here," said, "before their main fleet responds." Ghost Runner slipped away into the dark. By the time coalition reinforcements arrived, there was nothing left but debris. It was the same story across the solar system. Human ships attacked supply lines, communication relays, isolated patrols. They never stayed to fight. They hit hard and disappeared. On the Infinite Dominion, Hex listened to another report of losses. His supply situation was becoming critical. His fleet was powerful but hungry. Every day they stayed in human space, they consumed massive amounts of resources. "We control the orbital space around Earth," his tactical officer said. "We should land forces and occupy the planet. End this quickly." "No," Hex said. He had studied human history now. He understood what happened when you tried to occupy a. "We need to break their colonies first, show them resistance is futile." The coalition fleet moved toward New Haven. Peter Collins watched the enemy ships approach. The colonists had 3 days to prepare. They used every hour. Mining equipment became weapons. Underground shelters became bunkers. Civilian transports became evacuation routes. New Haven was built to survive radiation storms and meteor impacts. Now those same defenses would face orbital bombardment. "They're in range," someone said. The coalition opened fire. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, striking the colony's surface installations. Buildings exploded. Power stations went dark. The bombardment continued for hours. But when the coalition landing craft descended, they found the colonists alive, underground, waiting. Peter led his squad through the tunnels beneath New Haven. They knew every passage, every junction. The coalition troops stumbled around in unfamiliar territory. They had technology, but humans had knowledge. There, Peter whispered. A squad of coalition soldiers moved through a large cavern, their suits providing light. They had no idea they were surrounded. Now, Peter said. Mining charges exploded. The cavern shook. Rock fell from the ceiling. In the chaos, human colonists attacked with whatever they had: mining tools, improvised explosives, determination. The coalition squad broke and ran. Peter's team didn't pursue. They melted back into the tunnels. This was their home. They would defend it meter by meter. On Earth, Dr. Gregory worked in his laboratory. The kinetic weapons had been effective, but the coalition was adapting. Their newer shields could partially deflect solid projectiles. He needed something new. What about electromagnetic pulses? His assistant asked. If we can disable their shields completely, even for a few seconds, our weapons could get through. Gregory studied the calculations. It would require getting very close. Within their defensive range, any ship that tried it would be vulnerable. But it would work. It might work. Let me run some tests. The technology was risky, experimental, but humanity didn't have the luxury of safety. They needed every advantage they could find. General Bradford coordinated the defense from Earth Command. He moved ships like pieces on a board, always trying to stay one step ahead of the coalition. Every day brought new challenges. Colony Base 7 is under attack, an aide reported. They're requesting support. Bradford looked at the map. He had ships near that location, but if he sent them, it would leave another area exposed. Every decision meant choosing which humans to protect and which to abandon. Send the cruiser squadron, he ordered. Tell them to engage and withdraw, don't get trapped. The months dragged on. The coalition controlled large sections of space, but they couldn't control it all. Human ships darted in and out like wolves, striking where the coalition was weak. Every convoy lost, every patrol destroyed. Every day humanity survived was a day the coalition bled resources. Collins had been promoted to commander after Sentinel-7's defense. Now she commanded the rebuilt station and coordinated tactical operations across the entire sector. Coalition fleet is moving toward the asteroid belt, her sensor officer reported. Studied the display. The coalition was getting smarter. They were using larger formations, making hit-and-run attacks harder, but they were also spreading themselves thin. Contact Captain Drake, she ordered. Tell her we have an opening near their forward supply depot. If she can hit it, we can force them to pull back ships from the asteroid belt. Understood, Commander. Watch the tactical board. Every piece mattered. Every ship, every station, every colonist fighting in tunnels on distant worlds. Humanity was outnumbered, but they refused to break. On New Haven, Peter's resistance cell had driven the coalition occupation forces into a defensive perimeter. The aliens controlled the landing zone, but nothing else. Every time they ventured into the colony, humans struck from the tunnels. Peter received a message from his sister. His face appeared on his small screen. Hey, little brother, heard you're causing trouble out there. Peter managed a tired smile. Just holding the line. How are things on your end? Same, we're all holding. That's what matters. How long can we do this? The coalition keeps sending more ships. We keep losing people. Was quiet for a moment. Long enough. We just need to last long enough. They can't sustain this forever. Their member species are questioning the war. Their resources are draining. We're hurting them more than they want to admit. And if we're wrong, then we go down fighting. But I don't think we're wrong, Peter. I think they're scared of us now. The conversation ended. Peter turned back to his squad. They were exhausted, running on determination alone, but they were still here, still fighting. Fleet Commander Hex called another meeting with his senior staff. The reports were all bad. Supply lines disrupted. Colonies refusing to fall. Member species of the coalition withdrawing support. The High Council is demanding results, Hex said. We've been here for 3 months. We control orbital space, but nothing else. How is this possible? His intelligence officer, who had been studying human tactics, spoke carefully. They're fighting asymmetrically, Commander. They know they can't win direct engagements, so they don't try. They attack our weaknesses and avoid our strengths. So we eliminate their weaknesses. We destroy everything, make an example. That would turn more coalition species against us. The propaganda value alone would be disastrous. The humans are already broadcasting our attacks on civilians. 3 more member species are threatening to withdraw. Hex slammed his hand on the table. Then what do you suggest? I suggest we recognize we might not win this war, not the way we planned. The words hung in the air. No one spoke. The idea that the mighty coalition might not defeat one inferior species was unthinkable, but it was becoming reality. President Lisa Morales gave another address. She looked older now, worn down by months of war, but her voice remained strong. We have fought for 90 days. We have lost ships, stations, lives. The coalition controls the space around our planet. They occupy our colonies. By every measure, we should have surrendered by now, but we haven't, and we won't. She paused, letting the words sink in. Because we understand something the coalition doesn't. This isn't about territory or resources. Fleet Commander Hex stood before the holographic display of Sanctuary Point. The colony held 50,000 humans, mostly families of military personnel. It had no military value, no weapons, no defenses, just civilians trying to survive the war. Commander, the High Council has authorized extreme measures, his communications officer said quietly. They want a demonstration, something that will break human resistance. Hex studied the peaceful colony below. He had fought in 17 campaigns. He had conquered 9 species, but he had never deliberately targeted civilians. It violated every principle he believed in. The High Council insists, the officer continued. They say one overwhelming show of force will end the war, save lives in the long run. Hex closed his eyes. He thought about his own family back home, about the species the coalition was supposed to protect, about what he was becoming in this war. Target Sanctuary Point, he said quietly. All ships, full bombardment. The coalition fleet opened fire. Energy beams rained down on Sanctuary Point. The colony had no shields, no defenses, buildings vaporized. Entire districts disappeared in flashes of light. It lasted 10 minutes. When it was over, Sanctuary Point was gone. Commander Collins received the news in Sentinel-7's command center. The report came from a scout ship that had been monitoring the area. She read it twice, unable to believe what she was seeing. Commander, her communications officer said, what should we do? Looked at the screen, 50,000 people, civilians, children, all dead. The coalition had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Get me General Bradford, she said. Her voice shook with rage. And send this to every human ship and station. Everyone needs to see what they did. The footage spread across human space within hours. The bombardment, the destruction, the complete annihilation of a civilian colony. Every human who saw it felt the same thing. Not fear, not despair, fury. President Lisa Morales addressed humanity one more time. But this time, there was no speech about survival or resistance. This time, she simply showed the footage of Sanctuary Point. This is what they think of us, she said. This is how they fight. They murdered 50,000 innocent people to break our will. They made a mistake. They thought this would make us surrender. Instead, they showed us exactly what we're fighting against. And now we make them pay. General Bradford called every available commander to a secure conference. Collins joined from Sentinel-7. Captain Drake connected from Ghost Runner. Peter Collins linked in from New Haven. Officers from every ship, every station, every colony. We're done playing defense, Bradford said. Intelligence has located the coalition's main refueling station. Most of their fleet depends on it. We're going to destroy it. Sir, that's deep in their controlled territory, someone objected. We'd lose half our fleet just getting there. Then we lose half our fleet, but we hurt them. We make them understand that Sanctuary Point has a price. Study the tactical data. It was a desperate plan. They would have to commit almost every ship they had. If it failed, Earth would be defenseless. But after Sanctuary Point, nobody cared about safety anymore. When do we launch? She asked. 36 hours, Operation Thunderstrike. Captain Drake volunteered for the most dangerous part of the mission. Ghost Runner would infiltrate the station and disable its defenses from inside. It was a one-way trip. Everyone knew it. I'll need a crew, said. Volunteers only. Every member of her crew volunteered. They all wanted revenge for Sanctuary Point. The 36 hours passed quickly. Human ships gathered at the rally point, hidden behind Jupiter's moon Io. It was the largest fleet humanity had assembled since the war began. 53 vessels against 400 coalition ships. Commanded the assault group from Sentinel-7. The station had been modified with Dr. Gregory's new EMP weapons. Experimental, untested, but powerful enough to disable Coalition shields at close range. "All ships report ready," her tactical officer said. "Open the fleet-wide channel. This is Commander Collins. You all know what happened at Sanctuary Point. You all know what we're fighting for. Today we show the Coalition that humanity doesn't forgive. And we don't forget. All ships engage." The human fleet burst from cover and raced toward the Coalition refueling station. Alarms blared across the Coalition fleet. They had not expected humans to attack in force. Ghost Runner had already infiltrated the station 3 hours earlier, and her crew moved through the corridors in stolen Coalition maintenance suits. The station was massive, designed to service dozens of ships at once. "Defense control is 2 levels up," her engineer said, "but there are guards." "Then we go through the guards," said. They fought their way up through the station. Coalition security forces responded, but they were unprepared for humans fighting with desperate intensity. Crew left bodies behind them. They were not there to take prisoners. "Defense control ahead," someone shouted. Kicked open the door, Coalition officers scrambled for weapons. Team was faster. The firefight lasted seconds. When the smoke cleared, was the only one from her crew still standing. She looked at her fallen teammates. Good people, friends, dead because of Sanctuary Point. Dead because the Coalition thought they could murder civilians without consequence. Turned to the defense console and placed explosive charges on the main systems. She set the timer for 5 minutes. That would give the human fleet time to arrive. "Ghost Runner to all human ships," she transmitted. "Station defenses will go down in 4 minutes. Make it count." She sat down and waited. The charges ticked down. Outside, the human fleet closed in, thought about Sanctuary Point, about the 50,000 who never had a chance. At least she was giving humanity a chance. The charges detonated. The station's shields dropped. Its weapons went offline. In that moment, the entire Coalition position became vulnerable. Saw the shields collapse. All ships full attack, target their docked vessels. Sentinel-7 led the charge. The experimental EMP weapons fired, disabling the shields of nearby Coalition ships. Human kinetic weapons followed, tearing through unprotected hulls. Explosions bloomed across the station. The Coalition fleet tried to respond, but they were caught completely off guard. Ships that were refueling couldn't undock quickly enough. Those that managed to launch had no shield support from the station. The battle turned into a slaughter. On the Infinite Dominion, Hex watched his fleet burn. 37 ships destroyed in the first 10 minutes. 2 of his precious siege vessels gone. The refueling station crippled beyond repair. "Pull back," he ordered. "Get our ships away from the station." But the damage was done. His fleet's ability to operate in human space had been gutted. Without that station, ships would have to travel all the way back to Coalition territory to refuel. The entire campaign was compromised. Dr. Gregory monitored the battle from his research station. The EMP weapons had worked beyond expectation, but something else caught his attention. A Coalition command ship, disabled but intact, drifting near the edge of the battle. "General Bradford, we have an opportunity. That command ship has their intelligence database. If we can capture it before they destroy it, we get everything. Communication codes, fleet movements, maybe even their political situation." "Do it," Bradford ordered. A human boarding party seized the drifting ship. They worked frantically to download the intelligence database before Coalition reinforcements arrived. They succeeded with minutes to spare. The data was devastating to the Coalition. It showed internal divisions, member species questioning the war, economic strain from the extended campaign, and most importantly, evidence that 3 member species were preparing to withdraw their support. President Lisa Morales reviewed the intelligence personally. "Broadcast this," she ordered. "Not to humans, to the Coalition, to their member species. Show them what their leaders are hiding." The broadcast went out on captured Coalition frequencies. People across the Coalition space saw the truth. Their government was bankrupting them for a war against one small species, a war they were losing. On New Haven, Peter Collins and his resistance fighters launched a final assault on the Coalition occupation force. The enemy had been demoralized by the news from the main fleet. They broke quickly. New Haven was liberated. Peter stood on the surface of his colony and looked at the stars. The Coalition fleet was retreating. The refueling station was destroyed. Humanity had struck back hard. Received a message from her brother. His face was bruised and tired, but he was smiling. "We did it, sis. New Haven is free." "We all did it," said every human who refused to give up. Fleet Commander Hex sat alone in his quarters. The battle had been a disaster. His fleet was crippled. His supply lines were broken. And now his own government was fracturing. 3 member species had officially withdrawn from the Coalition. Others were considering it. He thought about Sanctuary Point, about the 50,000 civilians he had killed. He had wanted to break human resistance. Instead, he had unified them and destroyed his own cause. The Coalition High Council met in emergency session. Half the chamber wanted to continue the war. The other half wanted to negotiate. They had been arguing for days while their fleet bled and their alliance crumbled. "We cannot show weakness," Council member insisted. "If we withdraw from human space, every species in the galaxy will question our authority." "Our authority is already questioned," another Council member replied. 3 species have left the Coalition. 4 more are considering it. This war is destroying us." The faction made their decision. One final assault. Everything they had left. If humanity fell, the Coalition could claim victory and restore order. If humanity survived, well, it wouldn't matter anymore. They gathered every available ship. 200 vessels, including the reserve fleet that was supposed to defend Coalition home worlds. They formed the largest battle group ever assembled for a single target. Their destination was Earth itself. General Bradford received the intelligence reports. The Coalition was coming, not for a station or a colony. This time they wanted the human. "How long do we have?" President Lisa Morales asked. 48 hours, maybe less." Lisa looked at the map of human space. Every ship was already committed. Every defense was already in place. There was nothing more to give except courage. "Evacuate non-essential personnel from Earth orbit," she ordered. "Get civilians to the surface shelters and bring every ship home. If they want Earth, they'll have to go through all of us." Commander Collins received the recall order aboard Sentinel-7. Her station would anchor the orbital defense. She looked at her crew, all of them exhausted from months of constant combat. "This is it," she told them. "Everything we've fought for comes down to this battle. The Coalition wants to break us here. We're going to show them that Earth doesn't break." Her crew responded with a cheer. They were tired, but they were ready. Captain Stephen brought his destroyer Earth's Fury back from patrol at Jupiter. His ship was battered and his crew was running on empty, but when the call came, there was never any question. You protected home. Dr. Gregory worked frantically in his laboratory. The EMP weapons had worked in the last battle. Now he was making them stronger. He had 48 hours to turn a risky weapon into humanity's ace in the hole. "This will drain our power systems completely," his assistant warned. "One shot and we're defenseless." "Then we better make it count," Gregory said. Peter Collins and a convoy from the liberated colonies raced toward Earth. His ships were small, mostly converted transports and mining vessels, but they were armed and they were angry. The Coalition had tried to take New Haven. Now Peter was coming to make sure they didn't take Earth. The Coalition fleet emerged from hyperspace precisely on schedule. 200 warships filled the space between Earth and the Moon. At the center, Fleet Commander Hex stood on the bridge of the Infinite Dominion. This was his last chance to salvage something from this disaster. "All ships attack formation," he ordered. "Target their orbital defenses. Once those fall, the planet is ours." The Coalition fleet advanced. They expected desperate resistance. They got coordinated fury. Coordinated the defense from Sentinel-7. Human ships formed a defensive sphere around Earth, layered and overlapping. The Coalition would have to fight through each layer. "First wave incoming," her tactical officer reported. 60 ships. "Let them get close," said calmly. "Wait for Doctor's signal." The Coalition vanguard closed in, confident in their numbers. They were almost in weapons range when every human defense platform activated simultaneously. Not normal weapons. Dr. Gregory's enhanced EMP generators. The electromagnetic pulse swept across space like an invisible wave. Coalition shields collapsed across the entire vanguard. For 30 seconds, they were completely vulnerable. "Fire everything," shouted. Human kinetic weapons opened up. Rail guns, missile pods, mass drivers, anything that could throw metal at high speed. The Coalition vanguard disintegrated. 40 ships destroyed before their shields could reactivate. "Second wave," ordered. "All ships rotate positions, don't let them predict our movements." The battle became a swirling chaos. Coalition ships tried to push through, but human defenders fought for every meter of space. The orbital infrastructure that had been built over a century became a weapon. Communication satellites rammed Coalition ships. Cargo haulers detonated themselves to take out enemy vessels. Even civilian transports joined the fight, using their mass as weapons. On the Infinite Dominion, Hex watched his fleet being torn apart. This was supposed to be overwhelming force. Instead, humans were making them pay for every ship, every meter, every second. "Deploy the siege vessels," he ordered. "Break through their center." 4 massive Coalition ships, each larger than anything humanity possessed, pushed towards Sentinel-7. Their weapons could crack planets. They represented the Coalition's ultimate power. "Saw them coming. All available ships, concentrate fire on those siege vessels. We cannot let them get in range of Earth." But the siege vessels had massive shields and heavy armor. Human weapons splashed against their defenses like water against rock. The massive ships kept advancing. Then Peter Collins arrived with his colonial convoy. "This is the New Haven Liberation Fleet," Peter broadcast. "We're here to help." His ships were nothing compared to Coalition siege vessels. Mining transports, cargo haulers, a handful of armed frigates, but they had one advantage. They were piloted by people defending their home. "All ships target their engines," Peter ordered. "We don't need to destroy them, we just need to stop them." The colonial fleet swarmed the siege vessels like insects attacking giants. They were too small and too many to target efficiently. Mining lasers, designed to cut asteroids, focused on the siege ship's engine sections. It wasn't much, but it was enough. One siege vessel lost power and began drifting, then another. The remaining 2 tried to compensate, but human defenders pressed their advantage. Railgun rounds hammered at weakened sections. Missiles found gaps in the armor. Captain Stevens saw an opening on the 3rd siege vessel. Its starboard shield generator had taken heavy damage. "All power to engines," he told his crew. "We're going in." "Sir, that's suicide," his weapons officer said. "So is losing Earth, ram speed." Earth's fury accelerated directly at the siege vessel. Coalition point defense tried to stop it, but Stevens' ship was already too close. The destroyer crashed into the siege vessel's exposed flank at full speed. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface. When it cleared, both ships were gone. Felt tears on her face. Stephen had been her friend since the academy. She didn't have time to grieve. She had a battle to win. "Push them back," she ordered. "For Stephen, for everyone we've lost, push them back." The human fleet surged forward. They had lost ships, lost friends, lost thousands of people. But they were still fighting, still standing between Earth and the Coalition. On the Infinite Dominion, Hex received the reports he dreaded. 3 siege vessels destroyed or disabled. 74 ships lost. The human defenses were holding, and now his sensors showed something that made his blood run cold. Coalition ships were pulling back, not just a few. Entire squadrons were breaking formation and jumping away. Member species had decided they wouldn't die for this war anymore. "Commander, we're losing fleet cohesion," his tactical officer reported. "The forces are withdrawing, the ships are refusing orders." Hex stared at Earth, still blue and green and defiant in the distance. He had come here to conquer a primitive species. Instead, he had watched his alliance fall apart. "Signal all remaining ships," he said quietly. "We're withdrawing." "Sir." "You heard me. This war is over. We lost." The surviving Coalition ships turned and jumped away. The battle ended not with a grand finale, but with retreat. 200 ships had come to Earth, less than 100 left. Watch the enemy fleet disappear. For a moment there was silence in Sentinel-7's command center. Then someone started clapping, then another. Soon everyone was cheering. "We won," her tactical officer said, barely believing it. "We actually won." Slumped in her chair, they had won, Earth was safe, but the cost. She looked at the casualty reports. Thousands dead, dozens of ships destroyed, Stephen and so many others who would never see the peace they fought for. President Lisa Morales addressed humanity from the rebuilt presidential palace. She looked exhausted but proud. The coalition has withdrawn. The war is over. We have won our freedom, but we must never forget the price. 50,000 people at Sanctuary Point, thousands more in battle. Heroes like Captain Stephen who gave everything. We honor them by building a future worthy of their sacrifice. 3 days later, a message arrived from Coalition Space. A new government had formed, composed of moderate species who had opposed the war. They proposed peace talks and mutual recognition of sovereignty. General Bradford and President Lisa Morales reviewed the proposal together. "What do you think?" Lisa asked. "I think they learned what happens when you threaten humanity," Bradford said. "I think we showed the entire galaxy something important." "What's that?" "That we don't start fights, but we finish them." Commander Collins and Peter Collins met on Earth for the first time in a year. They stood together at the memorial for Sanctuary Point, looking at the names of the dead. "Was it worth it?" Peter asked quietly. Thought about the question, about all the death and destruction, about Stephen ramming his ship into a siege vessel, about Captain Drake sacrificing herself to save the fleet, about 50,000 civilians who died for no reason except to make a point. "We're free," she said finally. "We answered an ultimatum with defiance. We proved that humanity doesn't surrender. Whether that was worth it, I don't know, but it was necessary." Peter nodded. They stood together in silence, honoring the dead and thinking about the future. 6 months later, formal peace treaties were signed. The coalition, smaller and humbler, recognized human sovereignty over their territory. Other species, inspired by humanity's resistance, began questioning their own subjugation. The galaxy was changing. Commander Collins accepted command of a new station being built to guard Earth. General Bradford retired to write the history of the war. President Lisa Morales won re-election in a landslide. And Peter Collins returned to New Haven to rebuild. They had been given one last warning. Humanity had proven they fight back, and the galaxy would remember. The door chimed. His intelligence officer entered. "Commander, the High Council is demanding a report." "Tell them the truth," Hex said quietly. "Tell them we underestimated humanity. Tell them this war is lost." Humanity had turned the tide. The coalition was breaking. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, humans believed they could win. This is about whether we control our own destiny. Every day we resist, we prove that humanity cannot be broken. Every attack we survive makes us stronger. The coalition came here expecting an easy victory. They're learning that nothing about humanity is easy. Across human space, tired, bloodied, but unbroken forces heard the message. They held their positions. They planned their next attacks. They kept fighting. The long war continued, and humanity endured. His intelligence officer had warned him about human history, about their wars, their stubbornness, their refusal to accept defeat. Hex dismissed it. Every species had myths about their own greatness. Reality was different. The countdown reached 0. President Lisa Morales did not send a message of surrender. Instead, she sent coordinates, meeting points, challenge accepted. Commander Daniel Pierce watched his displays. Lieutenant Collins prepared her weapons. General Bradford gave the final orders. Dr. Gregory activated his experimental systems. Across human space, 47 ships and 12 stations stood ready. It was nothing compared to the coalition's might. But humans had learned long ago that numbers didn't tell the whole story. The coalition wanted to teach humanity a lesson. They were about to get one instead. The war was coming, and humanity was done with warnings.